Minho Kim walked through the long hallway of the Galactic Council station. His black diplomatic suit felt heavy on his shoulders. The station hung in space above a blue planet called Kepler 442b. Through the massive windows, he could see ships from dozens of alien species floating in the darkness. Today was supposed to be a normal meeting. Minho had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now. He usually talked about trade agreements and mining rights, nothing too exciting. But this morning he received a message from Earth that made his blood run cold. The main council chamber was huge. Representatives from 47 different species sat in a circle. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of living crystal. A few breathed methane instead of oxygen and sat in special tanks. At the center of the room stood Overlord Thexmar of the Velthran Empire. He was 12 feet tall with gray skin and 4 arms. His red eyes glowed like hot coals. The Velthrans controlled nearly half the galaxy. They were strong, smart, and very cruel to anyone who opposed them. "The session will now begin," announced the council speaker, a floating, jellyfish-like creature. "Overlord Thexmar has requested to address the assembly regarding humanity." Minho felt his heart beat faster. This was it, the moment Earth had been preparing for. Thexmar stepped forward. His voice boomed across the chamber. "Fellow members of the Galactic Council, I come before you today with a simple message for the humans." He turned his burning red eyes toward Minho. "Your species has expanded too far, too fast. You claim worlds that rightfully belong to the Velthran Empire." The alien representatives shifted in their seats. Some looked nervous. Others seemed excited to watch what would happen next. "We offer humanity one choice," Thexmar continued. "Surrender all colonies beyond your home system. Accept Velthran rule. Your people will be allowed to live as our servants. This is more mercy than we usually show." Minho stood up slowly. The chamber fell silent. Even the translation machines seemed to pause. "And if we refuse?" Minho asked. Thexmar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Then we will destroy every human world. We will hunt down every human ship. Your species will become nothing but dust floating in space." The other representatives watched carefully. Everyone knew the Velthrans had the biggest fleet in the galaxy. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. Their weapons could crack planets open like eggs. "You have 1 week to decide," Thexmar said. "Send your answer to the Velthran fleet waiting at the edge of your solar system." Minho nodded slowly. He walked to the center of the chamber. His footsteps echoed in the silence. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began. His voice was calm and steady. "I thank Overlord Thexmar for his generous offer." Some of the alien representatives leaned forward. They expected Minho to beg for more time, maybe ask for better terms. Instead, Minho smiled. "I have already received instructions from Earth," he said. "Our answer is simple. We refuse." A wave of shocked whispers filled the chamber. Thexmar's eyes flared brighter. "Furthermore," Minho continued, "I want to make something very clear to the Overlord and everyone else here today." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every representative. Humanity did not ask for this fight. "We came to the stars looking for friends, not enemies. We built schools, not weapons. We planted gardens, not graveyards." Thexmar laughed. "You think your peaceful nature will save you? Your ships are slow. Your weapons are weak. You have barely left your own solar system." Minho's smile grew wider. "That is where you are wrong, Overlord. You see, humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We have fought with sticks and stones. We have fought with swords and shields. We have fought with bullets and bombs. We learned something very important from all that. Fighting." The chamber was so quiet that Minho could hear his own heartbeat. "We learned that the best way to win a war is to make sure it never happens again," he said. "So when you force us to fight, we do not fight just to win. We fight to end the problem forever." Thexmar stepped closer. His 4 hands clenched into fists. "Are you threatening the Velthran Empire?" "I am explaining human nature," Minho replied calmly. "You want war? You will get it. But understand this. When humans fight, we do not stop until our enemies can never threaten anyone again." Minho turned to address the entire council. "To all the free species here today, I give you this warning. Stay out of our way. What happens next will not be pretty." He turned back to Thexmar. "To the Velthran Empire, I say this: you picked this fight. Now we will show you how humans end them." Minho walked toward the exit. Behind him, the chamber erupted in angry shouts and nervous chatter. Thexmar roared something about crushing the human fleet, but Minho was already thinking about the message he would send to Earth. 3 simple words that would change everything. Protocol Lazarus activated. On Earth, 3 billion miles away, Hannah Park sat in the command center beneath New Seoul. She was the director of the Seoul Defense Initiative. The walls around her were covered with screens showing star maps and ship positions. When Minho's message arrived, Hannah closed her eyes for a moment. She had hoped this day would never come, but humanity had prepared for it anyway. All stations, she said into her microphone. This is Director Park. Execute Protocol Lazarus. Repeat Execute Protocol Lazarus immediately. Across Earth, sirens began to wail. Deep underground, massive machines started to hum with power. On the dark side of the moon, weapon platforms turned toward the stars. The Vaelthrons thought they were attacking a peaceful species. They had no idea they were about to wake up something that had been sleeping for centuries. Something that humanity had built in secret, hoping never to use it. The war was about to begin, and the Vaelthrons were about to learn why humans had conquered their own world long before they reached for the stars. 3 months had passed since the war began. To anyone watching, it looked like humanity was losing badly, very badly. Admiral Donghyun Lee stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Seoul's Pride. Through the main screen, he watched Vaelthron ships destroy the last human defense station at Proxima Centauri. Explosions lit up the darkness of space like deadly fireworks. "Admiral, we need to retreat," said his tactical officer. "The Vaelthrons have twice as many ships as we do." Donghyun nodded sadly. "Send the retreat signal. All ships fall back to Wolf 359. The human fleet turned and ran. Behind them, Vaelthron ships gave chase, firing their weapons and destroying any human vessel that fell behind. To the enemy, it looked like panic. Complete defeat. But Donghyun was not panicking. He was acting. On Earth, Dr. Sumin Choi sat in a secret laboratory buried 2 miles underground. She was the head of human intelligence, and she was very busy. Around her, hundreds of scientists worked at computer terminals and testing stations. "How many Vaelthron weapons have we captured so far?" she asked her assistant. 43 different types, the young man replied. Energy cannons, missile systems, and shield generators. The teams have been studying them for weeks, Sumin smiled. Every time the human fleet retreated, they left behind hidden sensors and recovery drones. When the battles ended, these devices collected pieces of damaged Vaelthron ships, broken weapons, computer parts, even chunks of armor. The Vaelthrons thought they were chasing cowards. They had no idea they were being studied. In another part of the laboratory, engineer Jinwoo Han worked on something amazing. He had taken apart a Vaelthron energy cannon and spread the pieces across 3 tables. Each part was marked with notes and measurements. "The power output is impressive," he said to his team, "but the design is inefficient. They waste 30% of their energy. Can we make it better?" asked one of the engineers. Jinwoo grinned. "We already have. Our version is 40% more powerful and uses half the energy." This was the secret. Humans were not just copying alien technology. They were improving it, making it better, stronger, faster. Meanwhile, in space near Wolf 359, Captain Unisong prepared for another evacuation mission. Her ship, the Busan Runner, was loaded with frightened civilians fleeing the war zone. At least that was what the Vaelthrons thought. "Are the packages secured?" Una asked her first officer quietly. "Yes, Captain. All 40 containers are hidden in the cargo bay. The Vaelthrons will never find them." The packages looked like normal supply boxes. Inside each one were thousands of tiny robots called nanobots. They were so small that 1,000,000 of them could fit on a fingernail. But together, they could do incredible things. Una's ship joined a convoy of other refugee vessels. They flew slowly toward Vaelthron space, broadcasting messages about how desperate and helpless they were. The enemy ships let them pass. Why would they worry about defeated humans carrying their families to safety? What the Vaelthrons did not know was that each refugee ship carried secret cargo. As they traveled through enemy space, they dropped the tiny robots on planets, space stations, and asteroid mines. The nanobots were so small and so quiet that no scanner could detect them. Once they landed, the nanobots did nothing. They just waited. They were programmed to stay hidden for months, maybe years. But when the time came, they would wake up and do their job. Back at Wolf 359, Admiral Donghyun prepared for another defeat. Vaelthron ships were approaching the system. They expected another easy victory. "Sir, should we fight them?" asked his weapons officer. "For a little while," Donghyun replied. Make it look good. But when I give the order, we run again. The battle was short. Human ships fired their weapons and tried to fight back. But there were too many Veilthrons. The human fleet scattered and retreated toward the edge of the solar system. On the Veilthran command ship, Overlord Thexmar watched the humans flee. He laughed with satisfaction. "These humans are even weaker than I thought," he told his officers. "At this rate, we will control all their worlds within a year." His tactical advisor nodded. "Their ships are slow. Their weapons are primitive. They fight without strategy or skill." But they were wrong. Very wrong. On Earth, Hana Park stood in the war room surrounded by holographic displays. Each screen showed the position of human and Veilthran forces across the galaxy. To most people, it looked like a disaster. Red markers showed lost colonies and destroyed fleets. But Hana saw something different. She saw a plan working perfectly. "How many enemy ships have we scanned?" she asked. "Every single one," replied her intelligence officer. "We know their shield frequencies, weapon signatures, and engine designs. We have detailed information on 47 different Veilthran ship classes. And the nanobots? Deployed to 83 locations. They are dormant but ready to activate on your command." Hana nodded. The retreats were not defeats. They were data-gathering missions. Every battle gave humanity more information about their enemy. Every evacuation put their secret weapons deeper into Veilthran space. In his hidden laboratory, Jinwoo Han put the finishing touches on his latest creation. It looked like a normal human weapon, but inside it was completely different. He had combined human engineering with improved Veilthran technology. "Test firing in 3, 2, 1, he announced. The weapon fired. The energy beam was brighter and more focused than anything the Veilthrans had ever built. It cut through a target made of their strongest armor like it was paper. "Excellent," said Dr. Suman Choi, who had come to watch the test. "How soon can we have 1,000 of these?" 2 weeks, Jinwoo replied. Maybe less. Across human space, similar scenes were playing out. Engineers were building better ships. Scientists were developing new weapons. Intelligence officers were mapping every Veilthran weakness. The enemy thought they were winning. They saw human ships retreating and human colonies surrendering. They heard desperate messages from human leaders begging for mercy. What they did not see was the vast network of hidden bases being built in asteroid fields and empty star systems. They did not notice the small ships that followed their fleets from a distance, recording everything. They did not detect the millions of tiny robots now sleeping on their worlds. Captain Yuna Song completed her 15th evacuation mission. This time, she had carried refugees to a Veilthran labor camp on the planet Kepler 186F. The enemy guards had searched her ship but found nothing suspicious. As her ship left orbit, Yuna smiled. Behind her, 10,000 nanobots were already spreading through the planet's computer networks. Soon they would reach the communication arrays, the defense systems, and the power plants. And then they would wait. On the bridge of Seoul's Pride, Admiral Donghyun received a coded message from Earth. Only he and a few others knew what it meant. "Sir?" asked his first officer. "New orders?" "Yes," Donghyun replied. "We continue the retreat to Sol system. Make sure the Veilthrans follow us." "Are we leading them to Earth?" Donghyun's smile was cold and dangerous. "We are leading them exactly where we want them." The war was 3 months old. To the galaxy, it looked like humanity was about to be destroyed. The Veilthrans controlled most of human space. Their fleets were closing in on Earth itself, but appearances could be deceiving. The Veilthrans thought they were hunting a wounded animal. They had no idea they were walking into the most carefully planned trap in galactic history. Soon, very soon, they would learn the difference between human weakness and human patience. The Veilthran fleet approached Titan's gate with complete confidence. They had been chasing humans for 3 months. Every battle had been an easy victory. This would be no different. Commander Hyok Nam stood in the command center of the Titan defense station. 6 months ago, this place had been empty space. Now it was the most heavily defended position in human territory. But the Veilthrans did not know that. "Enemy fleet dropping out of hyperspace," reported his sensor officer. 67 ships. "They are forming attack formation." Hyok nodded calmly. "Wait for my signal." The Veilthran commander, Admiral Vexthor, looked at his tactical display. He saw what appeared to be a hastily built defense station surrounded by a few dozen human ships. It looked like a desperate last stand. "This will be over quickly," he told his officers. Prepare to fire, but something was wrong. As the Valthran ships moved closer, their sensors began picking up readings that did not make sense. The human station was showing energy signatures that looked familiar. "Sir," said Vexthor's tactical officer, "the humans appear to be using modified Valthran weapons." "Impossible," Vexthor replied. "They do not have the technology to copy our systems." He was about to learn how wrong he was. "Now," said Commander Hyok quietly. The space around Titan's gate exploded with light. But this time it was not the humans being destroyed. Energy beams shot out from hidden weapon platforms scattered throughout the asteroid field. Each beam was brighter and more powerful than anything the Valthrans had ever seen. The first wave of enemy ships died in seconds. Their shields, designed to stop Valthran weapons, were useless against the improved human versions. Armor that had protected them for centuries melted like ice under a blowtorch. "What is happening?" shouted Admiral Vexthor as his flagship shook under enemy fire. On Earth, engineer Sora Kang watched the battle through her command console. She had spent months designing the new defense systems. Every weapon was based on captured Valthran technology, but made better, stronger, smarter. Adaptive targeting systems online, she reported to the command center. The weapons are learning enemy movement patterns and adjusting automatically. This was the key breakthrough. Human computers could process information faster than Valthran minds could think. Every time an enemy ship changed course or firing pattern, the human weapons adapted instantly. The Valthran fleet tried to retreat, but it was too late. Hidden ships emerged from behind asteroids and moons. Each one carried weapons that could pierce Valthran armor and shields like they were made of paper. Commander Hyok opened a communication channel to the enemy fleet. "Admiral Vexthor, this is Commander Nam of the Human Defense Force. I suggest you surrender while you still have ships left." "This is impossible," Vexthor screamed. "Your technology is primitive. Your ships are weak." "We're weak," Hyok corrected. "We learned from you. Then we made your technology better." The revelation hit the Valthran fleet like a physical blow. The humans had not been retreating in panic. They had been studying, learning, and preparing. But the real shock was yet to come. Across Valthran space, on dozens of worlds and hundreds of space stations, something began to happen. The tiny nanobots that Captain Unisong and others had been secretly delivering for months suddenly came to life. Intelligence Officer Taeyang Lim sat in his control room on Earth, watching as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. His fingers danced over his keyboard as he activated sleeping programs in computer systems throughout Valthran territory. "Nanobots are active," he announced. "Beginning system infiltration now." On the Valthran homeworld, communication arrays began to malfunction. Military commanders found that their orders were not reaching their fleets. Supply convoys started delivering cargo to the wrong destinations. Power plants experienced mysterious failures. At first, the Valthrans thought it was bad luck or equipment failure. Then they realized the truth. Their entire empire was under attack from the inside. The nanobots were not just breaking things, they were changing them. Computer systems that had controlled Valthran ships for centuries now followed human commands. Weapons designed to destroy human colonies turned against their creators. "Sir," said Taeyang's assistant, "we have control of the Valthran communication network." Taeyang smiled coldly. "Excellent. Begin broadcasting the intercepted transmissions." Across the galaxy, every species with a radio receiver heard the panic in Valthran voices. Military commanders screamed about ships that would not obey orders. Planetary governors begged for help that was not coming. The mighty Valthran Empire was tearing itself apart. At Titan's gate, Admiral Vexthor watched his fleet die around him. Of 67 ships, only 12 were still functional. The humans had not just defeated them. They had done it easily. "How?" he whispered. Commander Hayek's voice came over the communication channel. "You made a mistake, Admiral. You thought humans were weak because we avoided fighting. You confused our choice for peace with inability to make war." More human ships appeared from hyperspace. But these were not the slow, weak vessels the Valthrans had been fighting for months. These were sleek, deadly, and armed with weapons that made Valthran technology look like toys. "You see," Hyok continued, "humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years before we ever met you. We fought with spears and swords. We fought with cannons and rifles. We fought with nuclear weapons that could destroy our own planet. The remaining Velthran ships tried to flee, but human vessels surrounded them easily. Their engines, once the fastest in the galaxy, seemed slow compared to the new human ships. "We learned something from all that fighting," Hayek said. "We learned that the best way to win a war is to be so good at it that nobody ever wants to fight you again." On the Velthran homeworld, Overlord Thexmar received reports that filled him with terror. His fleets were dying. His computer systems were compromised. His empire was collapsing. "How many humans are there?" he demanded. We do not know, my lord," replied his intelligence chief. "They appear to be everywhere at once." This was another human innovation. Dr. Woojin Park had developed a quantum communication system that allowed instant coordination across vast distances. Human fleets could work together as if they were in the same room, even when separated by hundreds of light years. The Velthrans, who had to rely on slower-than-light communication, found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to know their every move before they made it. At Titan's Gate, the battle was over. Admiral Vexthor's flagship floated dead in space, its crew unconscious from life support failure. Commander Hyok ordered his ships to capture the surviving Velthran vessels. "Sir," asked his tactical officer, "what do we do with the prisoners?" Hyok thought for a moment. "We treat them well. Better than they treated us. Then we send them home with a message." The message was simple. The humans were no longer retreating. The galaxy was about to see what happened when a peaceful species decided that peace could only be protected through strength. On Earth, Hana Park stood before a wall of screens showing the battle results. For the first time in months, the red markers showing human losses were being replaced by blue markers showing victories. "Phase 1 complete," she announced to her staff. "Begin Phase 2. Phase 2 was not about winning battles. It was about something much more important, making sure this war could never happen again. The Velthrans had wanted to see human weakness. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping since humanity first reached for the stars. They had reminded humans why they had become so good at fighting in the first place. And now, across the galaxy, every species was about to learn the same lesson. There was a difference between a species that chose peace and a species that was too weak to choose anything else. The humans had chosen peace for centuries. But when forced to choose war, they did not just fight to win. They fought to make sure nobody would ever force them to choose again. Fleet Admiral Yunji Bei stood on the bridge of the Earth's Hammer, the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. Around her, holographic displays showed the positions of human fleets across 17 different star systems. All of them were moving forward. "Admiral," said her communications officer, "all fleet commanders are reporting ready." Yunji nodded. "Begin Operation Starfall." Across the galaxy, human forces that had been hiding for months suddenly appeared. Not just in one place or two places, but everywhere at once. The Velthrans had thought they were chasing a broken enemy. Now they discovered they had been surrounded. On the Velthran command world of Nexus Prime, General Krathvan stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Red dots representing human fleets were appearing faster than his computers could count them. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Where did they all come from?" His aide was equally shocked. "Sir, our long-range sensors show human ships in the Vega system, the Altair sector, and the Rigel colonies. They are hitting 12 different targets simultaneously. But the humans were not just attacking randomly. Every target had been chosen carefully. Supply depots that fed the Velthran war machine. Communication relays that coordinated their fleets. Shipyards that built their weapons. The secret was Dr. Woojin Park's quantum communication system. While Velthran commanders had to wait hours or days for messages to travel between star systems, human forces could coordinate instantly across any distance. Captain Isol Shin led her strike team through the corridors of a Velthran supply station. Her soldiers moved quickly and quietly, their new armor making them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. "Remember," she told her team through their helmet radios, "we are not here to destroy. We are here to liberate." The station was full of alien workers who had been enslaved by the Velthrans. Some were from the Kepler colonies. Others came from worlds that had been conquered decades ago. All of them lived in fear. When Isol's team reached the control center, they found 3 Velthran guards standing over cowering alien technicians. The guards reached for their weapons, but human stunners dropped them before they could fire. You are free, Isul announced to the frightened workers. The humans are here to help you. But freeing slaves was only part of the mission. Isul's technical specialist, Corporal Daeho Kim, connected his portable computer to the station's main system. Got it, he said after a few minutes. I am uploading the Liberation Protocol now. The protocol was another human innovation. Instead of destroying captured Valthran equipment, they converted it. Weapons that had once oppressed innocent people were reprogrammed to protect them. Ships that had carried Valthran armies now transported freed slaves to safety. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out hundreds of times. Human forces did not just defeat their enemies. They turned Valthran's strength against the Valthran Empire. Strategic Coordinator Daeho Kim worked from a hidden command bunker deep inside an asteroid. His job was to predict where the Valthrans would go next. Around him, quantum computers processed millions of calculations per second. The enemy fleet from Sector 7 is retreating toward their homeworld, reported one of his analysts. Daeho smiled. Just as we expected, activate the Troy Protocol. The Troy Protocol was named after an ancient human story about a wooden horse. The Valthrans thought they were retreating to safety. They had no idea they were running toward the largest trap in galactic history. For months, human engineers had been secretly building hidden bases along every possible retreat route. When Valthran fleets fled toward their homeworld, they would find human forces waiting for them at every stop. Admiral Yunji Bei watched the battle reports flow in. The Vega system had fallen in 4 hours. The Altair sector was secured with minimal casualties. Every human victory freed thousands of alien slaves and captured dozens of enemy ships. Admiral, said her tactical officer, we are receiving surrender requests from 17 Valthran colonies. Accept them all, Yunji replied. But make sure our liberation teams reach those worlds quickly. I want every slave freed and every weapon converted within 24 hours. This was the human way of war. They did not fight to conquer or destroy. They fought to free and protect. Every victory made the galaxy a little bit safer for everyone except the Valthrans. On the Valthran homeworld, Overlord Thexmar paced back and forth in his command chamber. His 4 arms gestured wildly as he screamed at his generals. How can they be everywhere at once? He demanded. How can a primitive species defeat our greatest fleets? General Vorthak tried to explain. My lord, their technology appears to be based on our own designs, but improved. Their ships are faster, their weapons are stronger, and their coordination is perfect. Then we will destroy their homeworld, Thexmar roared. Gather every ship we have left. We will burn Earth to ash. But even as he spoke, more bad news arrived. The fleet he had sent to attack Earth 3 days ago had disappeared completely. Not destroyed, simply gone as if it had never existed. The truth was that Admiral Donghyun Lee had been waiting for them. His ships, now equipped with the most advanced weapons humanity could build, had made the Valthran attack fleet vanish in less than an hour. Captain Yuna Song piloted her ship through the debris field that had once been a Valthran battle group. Her vessel, the Busan Runner, was no longer disguised as a refugee transport. Now it bristled with weapons and moved faster than any Valthran ship could follow. Captain, said her first officer, we are detecting survivors in that wreckage. Rescue them, Yuna ordered, all of them. Treat their wounds and give them food. Then take them home. This confused many of the Valthran prisoners. They expected to be tortured or killed. Instead, human medical teams healed their injuries and human cooks prepared meals for them. When they asked why, the humans gave a simple answer. Because that is who we are. The psychological effect was devastating to Valthran morale. How could they fight an enemy that showed mercy to its captives? How could they maintain their empire when their own soldiers started to question whether they were on the right side? Dr. Woojin Park monitored the quantum communication network from his laboratory on Earth. Information flowed instantly between human forces scattered across 1,000 light-years. Every commander knew what every other commander was doing. Every ship could call for help and receive it within minutes. The Valthran retreat is proceeding exactly as predicted, he reported to Earth Command. They are falling back along Route 7, Route 12, and Route 19. Are our forces in position? Asked Hana Park. Every single ambush point is ready, Woojin confirmed. When the Valthran fleets arrive, they will find us waiting. The Valthrans had made a fatal mistake. They thought retreating would give them time to regroup and plan a counterattack. Instead, they were walking deeper into human-controlled space with every jump. Strategic Coordinator Deho Kim had studied Velthron military doctrine for months. He knew exactly which routes they would use to retreat. He knew which worlds they would try to defend. He knew where they would make their final stand. And at every single location, human forces were already waiting. Fleet Admiral Yoonji Bai received a priority message from Earth Command. The words made her smile. All objectives achieved ahead of schedule. Prepare for Phase 3. Phase 3 was not about defeating the Velthron military. That was almost finished. Phase 3 was about reshaping the galaxy so that no empire could ever again threaten peaceful species. The Velthrans had started this war believing that humans were weak. They had learned that humans were strong. Soon they would discover that humans were something much more dangerous than strong. They were determined to make sure this war was the last war the galaxy would ever need to fight. On her flagship, Admiral Unji looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Velthron fleets were still retreating toward their homeworld. They thought they were running to safety. They were wrong. They were running toward the final lesson humanity had prepared for them. A lesson about what happened when a peaceful species decided that peace was worth fighting for. The chase was almost over. Soon the Velthrons would have nowhere left to run, and then they would face the final choice: surrender, or face the full power of an angry human species that had finally remembered why it had become so good at war. The Velthron home system was in chaos. Overlord Thexmar stood in his command center, watching his empire crumble on 1,000 different screens. Every world he had conquered was in rebellion. Every fleet he had sent out was either destroyed or missing. "My lord," said his chief scientist, Dr. Yexmar, "the Star Killer weapon is ready." Thexmar turned toward him with burning red eyes. "You are certain it will work?" "Yes, my lord. We can destabilize our own sun and create a supernova. It will destroy everything in this system, including any human ships that dare to approach." Thexmar nodded grimly. If he could not rule the galaxy, he would at least take his enemies with him. "Prepare to activate the weapon." But 3 light minutes away, Admiral Minho Kim stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Soul's Vengeance. He was Minho, the ambassador's older brother, and he had been preparing for this moment for 6 months. "Sir," said his sensor officer, "we are detecting massive energy buildup around the Velthron sun. It looks like they are trying to weaponize their own star." Minho smiled calmly. "Right on schedule. Chief Engineer." "Oh, please activate the solar modification array." Chief Engineer Nara O worked at her console with practiced precision. "Array online, sir." Initiating frequency lock with the Velthron star. What the Velthrons did not know was that human ships had been in their home system for 3 months. Not hiding behind planets or asteroids, but actually inside the star itself. Using technology that seemed impossible, human engineers had placed quantum resonators deep in the stellar core. "Sir," said Dr. Yexmar frantically, "something is wrong with the Star Killer weapon." "It is not responding to our commands," Thexmar snarled. "What do you mean?" "The sun. The sun is no longer under our control." On the Soul's Vengeance, communications specialist Guman Lee prepared the most important broadcast in human history. Every radio, every quantum relay, every communication device in the galaxy would receive this message. "Sir," he said to Admiral Minho, "we are ready to transmit." Minho nodded. "Begin transmission. Let the galaxy hear humanity's final word." The message that followed would be remembered for centuries. It started with a simple statement that shocked every listener. "This is Admiral Minho Kim of the Human Liberation Fleet, broadcasting from inside the Velthron home system. Across the galaxy, billions of beings stopped what they were doing to listen. On the Velthron homeworld, Overlord Thexmar felt his blood turn to ice. To all species, free or enslaved," Minho continued, "this is humanity. 3 months ago, the Velthron Empire declared war on our species. They claimed we were weak because we sought peace. They mistook our restraint for helplessness." In the command center, Chief Engineer Nara O monitored her displays. The Velthron sun was now completely under human control. Its nuclear furnace had become the largest communication array in galactic history. "Today," Minho's voice echoed across space, "the Velthron Empire ends. Not through destruction, but through liberation. Every world they conquered is now free. Every weapon they built now protects the innocent." On 1,000 different worlds, the message was received by species that had lived under Velthran rule for generations. In slave camps and prison planets, alien workers looked up at the sky with hope for the first time in decades. But we want the galaxy to understand something important, Minho continued. This is not conquest. This is not revenge. This is simply what happens when you force peaceful people to remember why they learned to fight. Overlord Thexmar tried desperately to regain control of his Starkiller weapon, but every system in his empire had been compromised by human nanobots. His own technology now served human purposes. The Velthran Empire chose to make war on humanity, Minho said. We have shown them how to end it forever. On Earth, Director Hannah Park watched the transmission from her command center. Around her, screens showed the status of every liberated world. Former Velthran slaves were already forming their own governments. Weapons that had once oppressed them were being converted into tools of construction and defense. We did not ask for this fight, Minho's voice continued. We came to the stars looking for friends, not enemies. We built schools, not weapons. We planted gardens, not graveyards. But when someone threatens our right to exist in peace, we do not just defend ourselves. We make sure the threat can never rise again. The psychological impact was overwhelming. Species that had feared the Velthrans for centuries suddenly realized that the mighty empire was finished. Not defeated, transformed. Its weapons now protected those it had once enslaved. Its ships now carried medicine and food instead of soldiers and chains. To those who still dream of conquest, Minho said, his voice growing colder. Remember this day. Remember what happened when you picked a war with humanity. We showed you how to end it permanently. On the Velthran homeworld, Thexmar made one final desperate attempt to activate his doomsday weapon. But the sun that had warmed his world for millions of years no longer obeyed Velthran commands. Instead, it pulsed with a rhythm that carried Minho's voice to every corner of the galaxy. This galaxy will know peace. Not because we conquered it, but because we freed it. Not because we are strong, but because we remembered what we are fighting for. The transmission ended, but its effects would last forever. The Velthran Empire, which had ruled through fear and violence for centuries, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, but transformed into something that could never threaten anyone again. In the months that followed, former Velthran worlds established democratic governments. Species that had been enemies for generations learned to work together. The galaxy began to heal from centuries of war and oppression. Overlord Thexmar spent his final days in a comfortable prison on Earth. He was treated well, fed regularly, and given books to read. Sometimes he asked his human guards why they did not execute him. Because that is not who we are, they always replied. Director Hannah Park returned to her office on Earth and looked out at the stars. The galaxy was different now, safer, more hopeful. Children could grow up without fear of invasion or slavery. But she also knew that somewhere out there other species might be watching. Other empires might be planning. If they chose war with humanity, they would learn the same lesson the Velthrans had learned. Peace was not weakness. Peace was a choice. And when peaceful people were forced to fight, they did not just fight to win. They fought to make sure they would never have to fight again. The war was over. The galaxy was free, and the message was clear to anyone who might be listening. Humanity had remembered what it was capable of. They hoped never to use that knowledge again, but if they had to, they were ready. The stars shone down on a universe that was finally at peace. And in the silence of space, the echoes of humanity's final message continued to spread. You picked war with us. We showed you how to end it forever. It was a promise. It was a warning. And it was the last word anyone would ever need to hear about making war on the human species. The children of Earth had come to the stars seeking friendship. When they found enemies instead, they had shown the galaxy what happened when you forced builders to become warriors. They had shown them how humans end wars. Forever.